Thank you so much for joining us for our first talk about the sauna design for well-being, and it's part of the London Festival of Architecture. So just a quick admin here. So as most of you are mute yourself unless you are speaking. And during the talk, do pop in your questions in the Q&A box, and we will get all the questions or answer after all the presentation being done by the speakers. So welcome everyone. We may still have people still joining, but we could just start as it is right now. So so my name's Wendy. Some of you might know me and some of you not. So I am a trained architect, registered with the Royal Institute of British Architects. I'm also trustee and the Arts and Culture Officer for the British Sauna Society. Now, let me introduce you Mika, our chair of the British Sauna Society, and just give you a little brief introductions of the society.
Hey, evening. Good evening, Europe, Finland, UK, continent. Good morning, good day, America, and wherever you're listening. So welcome to the London Festival of Architecture. So on behalf of the British Sauna Society, we're extremely excited and proud to be able to present you with tonight's event and our program in general. So British Sauna Society is a charitable organization on a mission to further sauna culture in the UK. And this event is for all of you, whether you are into architecture, design, well-being, health, or saunas in general. So we have very, very exciting lineup of sauna experts, design experts tonight, and they are all able to offer very unique perspective into what is the essence of sauna, what is a good sauna experience that promotes and enables your well-being. And yeah, without further ado, let me introduce to you our quartet of speakers tonight. So we have Lassi A Liikkanen from Finland, the founder and author of the saunalogia.fi blog, and a very recent publisher of the book The Secrets of Finnish Sauna Design that came out perhaps a month ago. And so congratulations on the book launch. We have Katie Bracher, who's a colleague and friend from the British Sauna Society and co-founder of Beachbox in Brighton, and perhaps Britain's first sauna master. So maybe we hear about that as well. And we have Max Newport, Director of Design from Finnmark Sauna Limited, based in Durham, England. The Finnmark are purveyors of authentic saunas in the UK. Great guy, great friend, great colleague as well. And we have Asger, Risborg, Jakobsen calling in from Denmark. And Asger is an architect, designer, and medical student who's got involved with very exciting sauna projects recently. So great to hear from all of you. So thank you all for turning up. So let's get on with the presentations. Let's get on with the speaking program. So who's starting? I'm just asking. Hang on. Is it Lassi? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, Lassi, are you ready to take the stage at this point?
Yeah, sure, as long as I can get myself unmuted, which apparently already happened. Next, I will try to share my screen because I have something to show you. So hang on for a second. Let's see how this goes. Dear friends of sauna, greetings from Helsinki, Finland, the country in the world where you can basically walk up to any person on the street and ask them about what is their favorite sauna. And the quite unique part about Finland is that every other person will probably tell you that the very best sauna in the world is their own private sauna. And that's also where this story begins. So basically my story and my favorite sauna goes back about 6 years, before which time I used to be kind of unusual Finnish sauna goer and bather. But then my kind of relationship with the sauna started to change slightly. I mean, I had been previously rather kind of aware of sauna quality experience differences in a way that, for instance, my choice of a gym was largely based on the fact that the gym must have a decent sauna, otherwise I would kind of rather pick another gym. But then only 6 years ago, I started designing and building my very first own sauna. I did all of the design, but only like 1/3 of the construction, and ended up with a sauna in about 1 year. But then I also established something else, a project called saunologia.fi, which I basically used to document my kind of findings about how do you actually design and construct a well-working Finnish type of a sauna. So this project started around the same time as I was doing my own private sauna design, but it has kind of been continuing still. And in these 5 years since it began, I've actually had the pleasure to publish 2 books. First, 2 years ago, I published a Finnish book, which basically put up a kind of the core contents of my thinking that far. And then, as Mika implied, just this year, about a little bit more than a month ago, 5 weeks exactly, I published The Secrets of Finnish Sauna Design, which basically takes out the most interesting and important parts of the Finnish book, and also adds a little bit more explanations to what is the Finnish sauna culture for people who don't necessarily understand it so by heart as the Finnish people do. So this has been kind of my sauna design discovery research journey this far. And I will, in the next approximately 10 minutes, I'm going to take your time and tell you a little bit about what I've found all the way and why I'm currently still pursuing 5 years later this crazy thing. So let's start with my sauna mission. Then I will have a few words about how I see the design of sauna for well-being in particular, and some of the most treasured design secrets. But let's start with why. As you can now kind of probably understand that during 5 years, or actually almost 6 years, I've spent some amount of time digging up things. And I think my kind of most early motivation started for publishing and bringing out sauna design related stuff was the fact that when I started, it's very difficult to find information that would have been actionable in terms of design. So I thought it would be important to kind of be able to help everyone else do the same thing that I had to do in a hard way, to help everyone from here to Mars to enjoy a healthy, authentic sauna. And how I have been doing that is trying to educate people, investigate new information regarding sauna design, and of course also participate and design actual saunas, like the one on the back. My thinking, so I have to say that although I'm kind of new to the world of sauna design, or well, fresh 5 years, I've been approximately 15 years involved in professional design in other areas. And my kind of personal favorite part for design is this kind of evidence-based design. When I've been trying to apply what I kind of have learned in my professional experience with digital design and user experience design, I basically have been ending up with trying to look for reasons that explain kind of experiences that we have. Trying to kind of go back to the actual kind of factors that involve how we feel when we are in the sauna, and then kind of come up with design that allow us to construct buildings that work in the way that we like to. As I see, a good sauna enables a good sauna experience. There's no kind of guarantees what you're going to get, but if the sauna design is bad, you're definitely not going to have very good experiences. And this is basically overall idea that I've had in the book, trying to kind of present this experience-centered design guide of trying to look into all things that affect the sauna experience. And I have to say that if you take up this book now, today, anywhere in the world, you have to kind of acknowledge that it's being very much designed in Finland. It's grounded in the Finnish construction culture. Although in my book, I try to kind of have some sort of like a global adaptation, but it's still pretty much a Finnish story of how Finnish saunas look like today and what is the kind of best practice and what the evidence behind how they are built. So, but to the topic of today's this event, I had some like very few concise ideas about sauna and well-being. And I think everything starts from one guiding principle. It's based on research on Finnish sauna bathing, which have come up in the past 5 years. The best health benefits are attained if sauna bathing is frequent, at least 3-4 times a week, which is kind of luxury. And the sessions are somewhat long, at least 15 minutes or more. So I think this is a very important thing to take into consideration, because this means that the goal on when we do design saunas, to think about how they should be built, is that you want to make a sauna that people want to go often and stay for long. Unless your sauna can provide this kind of comfortable, safe, and accessible experience, it's not going to work. I have to say that although sauna aesthetics are important to me, I'm kind of engineer by heart and say that I think that it must also and must foremost function well. Otherwise, it'll be just more like a display space rather than really a source of health and well-being. So how do you make this kind of magic happen in a Finnish sauna? So my approach has been described in this book about the secrets. So I'm going to extract a few thoughts from the book and also my other thinking here. I have a brief description of what is actually a Finnish sauna, how do you master the overall design, and what are the key areas of design to watch out for. First of all, I think this is very important part is to acknowledge that sauna has somewhat distinct definition. This is my translation from a Finnish original from International Sauna Association, and I would like to pay attention to 2 things here. First of all, it's a hot space heated by a heater that contains stones. The sauna stones and the creation of steam, löyly, is a very important part of the Finnish sauna. And it also has to be quite hot. The consequence is that nowadays we'll find a lot of discussion about people talking about, for instance, infrared saunas, which is actually not the case. The infrared cabins are not a sauna. And for instance, if you're looking for health benefits, you'll find that actually the best health benefits are documented for a Finnish type of sauna, not an infrared cabin. How do the Finnish saunas then look like? In Finland, you'll find a lot of buildings that are saunas, but there are some buildings that only contain a single room, or you can find this single room also inside an apartment, the sauna room. This is what we're talking about. And my kind of approach, how do you actually design the sauna from this kind of experience perspective, is to use the model I call the 4-leaf clover of sauna design. And it has 4 elements, starting from heat, which is, I say, the easiest element, maybe. Even though we can't see it, we can definitely feel it, and it's pretty easy to measure. That's usually something that at least Finnish designers usually get right. But the kind of biggest hurdle in sauna design for the sauna experience, in my experience, is the air quality, which is it's invisible. We definitely do experience it, but it's difficult to attribute, and it's also quite difficult to master, taking all variations into consideration. Then we have the third factor, which I label the interior design, which covers the rest of the part of things in the sauna, which is clearly aesthetic, visual, easy to appreciate, but it's also very functional, tangible, and its design is somewhat easy, but it also can be tricky. And then the fourth component that we need to, in order to account for a full sauna experience, is to consider the culture and company. In my own work, I basically deal with the 3 first ones, because the sauna culture and company is somewhat transient, and everyone kind of brings in their own flavor when they enter. But I think it's important to understand that sauna culture is enabled by physical design. It doesn't happen without it. And then very brief look into the 3 most treasured secrets. First of all, from the domain of heat, it's pretty clear that we need to be able to control the temperature. There's quite a wide range of temperatures that could be usable for a sauna in Finland, but I think it's usually good that if you can support at least a 60 to 80 degrees range, which is kind of good for at least beginners. Which means that the heater is the most important thing in a sense in order to kind of guarantee the success. Then we have the 3 most important properties of the stove, which include the appropriate power in order to get the desired heat, decent amount of sauna stones in the heater in order to create löyly, and also a little bit surprisingly the height of the heater, which also plays an interesting role, as we'll soon learn. Then the element number 2, air quality. This is not got a huge secret, but I think it's very important to bear in mind that the bathers must be able to constantly enjoy fresh air, which doesn't have to be cool, but it has to be definitely be fresh. Because if that doesn't happen, we have several factors that will affect the air quality negatively. Particularly, I think carbon dioxide content is one of those things that will degrade the air quality. Unfortunately, this is some of the mystery in the sense that we don't really understand the overall importance of all elements. But I think we have one general solution, which is ventilation. And like in any building, we have basically mechanical ventilation or natural ventilation, both of which can be satisfactorily applied to sauna, but it's very important to apply them correctly. And that unfortunately doesn't always happen. Then the final part is the interior design. And in the interior design, I would like to emphasize that combination of 2 things, the benches and the ceiling, because they only make it possible to enjoy the löyly and the sauna in its fullest. Because there's kind of a Finnish saying called the law of löyly, which basically relates to the physical effect of hot air stratification, which basically means that hot air in the sauna will always go up. And unless there's some sort of good force making it go otherwise, you basically want to always have people placed rather high up in the sauna in order to enjoy the löyly and hot air. And therefore, the law of löyly basically dictates that you should always have people above the level of the heater's top level. Of course, there are different other factors that affect the experience from interior design, but benches and the ceiling are always on top of my list. And that's pretty much it. So the 3 secrets for a healthy sauna is to be able to control the temperature accurately, to have fresh air, and have a balance between benches and ceiling. This was, as you can see, pretty kind of condensed version. You should definitely try to check out the book, which is already available on all Amazon stores. And actually, we're going to soon have an exclusive Europe print, also available from Finmark. Thanks to those guys. And yeah, I could easily talk of a couple of hours on the topic, but I think now it's time to kind of give room for the other people. So thank you for your time, and let's move on. I think we're going to save the questions for later.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you, Lassi. Yeah. Congratulations on your book. And so,
Thank
yeah,
you.
guys, if you have any question, do pop it on the side, on the chat box. For now, let's introduce our next speaker, Katie Bracher. For most of you know, she's the founder of Beachbox Sauna Spa in Brighton, and also she's our vice chair of the British Sauna Society. So let's welcome Katie, see what she tells us about her journey and her design principle for the sauna. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's awesome to be here and see you all. Hello to all the familiar faces and everyone who I don't know. Good to meet you. Let me share my screen. I've got some pictures to share with you and some stories too. Oh, I'm skipping this one. It's irrelevant. Let's start here. So one of the questions that was posed for this talk is what makes a perfect sauna? And I started thinking about some, seminal sauna moments for me and what had made them so good. So you've got three saunas experiences here, although I've had many more fantastic ones. First is a festival. And I realized the thing that really was key for me at this festival was the fact that we was in kind of community. So we were in like a sauna tent and there was loads of people sitting around, sharing stories, singing. It was just like a really beautiful communal experience. And then also I came out of the tent, jumped in a lake, connected with nature and was like completely reborn. So, and that was actually my seminal sauna moment where I realized that like, holy shit, this is for me. Another really memorable sauna experience was in the Lona sauna in Helsinki, where it's got a really interesting design, which I'm going to show you guys in a minute, but I just remember feeling really beautifully clean. So they had this washing zone below the sauna platform with plentiful hot water, and it was just such a beautiful experience to stand and bathe and throw warm water over myself. And I just remember how beautiful I felt just in the process of cleansing. And the third sauna that I've chosen is the South Bank Centre pop-up sauna. They had a sauna on the rooftop and I was the sauna major there, guiding people through their experiences one winter. And I had many saunas there myself after work, and I'd always have a sauna alone or sometimes with friends. And it was just, that location was wild because you were in the middle of a city, but you were kind of in a secluded place. You're connected with nature still, with the river and the sky, but you were in this completely urban environment. And it, it didn't grow old, that sort of, that feeling of awe being there. So for me, a perfect sauna would include community, a transformation, a renewal of body and spirit. It would leave me clean, really clean, and I'd be and connected with nature and people. And it would be in a beautiful location that, blew my mind. So this is Lona sauna, when I was just talking about in Helsinki, and it's a beautiful architectural piece. It's been designed really wonderfully, and it's on the water's edge. So when you come out, you're literally there in nature. And you can see the picture on the right. We've got this sort of tall platform and above, which has it's a sort of seating area to sauna, and below is the washing area where there's taps and buckets. And these are my pictures from the same place. And I just love how this, really beautifully designed sort of stark building, these pictures are really soft and wet and, they really sort of feel how the experience was to be in the space. And that was, created through that really nice architecture. I'm going to, Lassi, you had this picture in your presentation as well, I think.
Yeah, I did.
This was at the Sauna Congress. So I was just going to throw a couple of pictures up because these are saunas that inspired me when I was building my own spas later on. So this is a big, I think 60 people in there. We had these huge, this was the Sauna Congress in Swedish Lapland in 2018, and we had this massive sauna village. There were so many different types of sauna there, but this was really the biggest one. I think 60 people in there, and we had sauna masters doing demonstrations and all different events. And then also there was some really basic structure. This is like a wooden framed building that someone's put together and wrapped in plastic and put a sauna stove in the corner, and that was like the steam room. I just thought it was really cool. And alongside all of this, I was, I've been learning and researching and discovering all the different beautiful rituals and culture that exist for sauna bathing. I'm not going to go into it deeply now, but you know, the idea of having bath attendants, sauna masters, bath masters who guide you through your experience, or who are on hand to help you whilst you sauna, and all the different things you can do in the sauna. You know, there's beauty treatments and bathing treatments and health treatments, group rituals. Yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff you can do with a sauna space. So Beachbox Brighton. So I moved down to the south coast, and having had all these different sauna experiences, we decided to put a pop-up sauna on the beach. So this was our first sauna. We got a piece of derelict land that we were given to use, and we bought a horse trailer. And immediately we've been building with like really interesting constraints. So for example, this horse trailer, like it's a strange shape and it's small. So straight away we had to work out how we could get the most out of it from what we wanted to do. So here it is. This is us at the very beginning, just one little trailer and a couple of deck chairs on the beach. We built it with a U shape inside, wider bench on one side so we could do whisking, but also so that we could have groups of people come in. We started bringing over bath masters to share their experiences with us. So this is us covered in chocolate, I think. We had a really basic cool down, which was this hose that would point at people. And we had families coming in and groups of friends. And it was just a really beautiful space. And it was just so popular. Everyone that came through had their mind blown, because you know, this style of sauna doesn't really exist in the UK. It does now, but it didn't then. So this was the next stage. We decided to build a bigger sauna. This one is modelled on the big wooden sauna I just showed you from the Congress. So we cleared a bit of our derelict land away, we put down some sleepers, and we decided to build this thing. We were on pretty low budget, so we bought it in flat packed. I got a friend to put these panels together in London. He brought it down, we got it up within a day, and then we kit out the inside. We used pretty much all recycled materials except for things like the vapor barrier. So all the interior wood was from packing crates. We had reused insulation from an old building that had been dismantled. You know, everything that we could get hold of. Windows were secondhand. So we reused everything where we could. And you can see they were literally right on the beach. And this is what we built. And I'm really proud of this design, because it was built for events. We built it so that we could start bringing bath masters over to share their skills and share their rituals with us. So the design for this, we attempted to raise the floor, because we were trying to go with the finish, feet above the stove rule. We've got the classic ventilation system in place. But at the same time, we also wanted to have like a Baltic style whisking table. So you'll see next to the stove, we've got a really big wide flat table where people can have proper whisking sessions. We've got tiered seating so that people can choose how high they sit. And then also we wanted to create a lot of space, because we wanted to bring in like the more Western Europe, like Aufguss rituals, like from the German style saunas. So yeah, it's really quite a cosmopolitan sauna, and it's been brilliant. Like it's worked. We've had whisking trainings. That's Brute from the International Bath Academy, who came and shared her whisking rituals with us. We've got Martin from the Lolu Masters in Belgium, who came and shared his Aufguss rituals. We've had groups of friends hanging out, enjoying themselves. It's been used as an office, and for parties, we've had a Swedish crayfish party a couple of years ago. So we've used the outside space as well. And this is it now. So it's grown really organically. Like the way it's operated, which is quite, I think, probably unusual way to build a spa, is that we've seen a need. And then we've built what we needed as we've gone. So, you know, there's a windbreak and there's eating areas and there's a shower zone. We've added a plunge pool and a bath. And yeah, it's just grown organically, but it's been really fun for everyone, even for our guests and people who have, you know, been with us on the journey, visiting us. And that's our little sink. So that's beach box number 1, but now we've moved into beach box number 2. So I'm just going to show you that and then I'll finish. So we've been on the beach for a couple of years and we've got the opportunity to build a spa on a campsite. And so again, we're totally in nature. This time it's in a forest. And here you can see the steam room that I've built, inspired by that plastic wrapped building that I saw at the Congress. So we've built a greenhouse essentially and put a sauna stove in it and created a steam room. So here people can, you know, in the steam room, it's really nice to do things like body scrubs. So we have a lot of body treatments that people do. And also it creates, you know, it's quite nice for the families as well, because kids like to go in there where it's not so hot. And we built it all in one go, which has like been the next stage in our progress of how we build. Like concept for the whole thing came together at once. And the concept for this is like blending in with nature pretty much. You know, we've got these beautiful twisty woods and we wanted to blend in with the background. And we've been experimenting, so we've put a cistern in a tree with a string so you can pull it and have a waterfall shower. So for me, when I'm thinking about what I'm designing a sauna experience, I'm actually thinking about the whole thing for the person who is coming to use it. So it's like the hot and cold. How does that look? Because that's really, really important that you've got like that contrast experience. Quality and longevity, where we've done a lot of pop-up spas. We've built with really low quality materials, which is fine when it's a pop-up, but you know, there's maintenance issues there and they won't last as long. Location and nature connection, I think, is like super important. Nature connection can be something really small, but I just think even if it's just being able to look at the sky, there's got to be something there. Bathing and resting places, like how are you going to get clean, where are you going to rest, you know, to relax and in between. And then of course all the beautiful rituals that you can do in the sauna. You know, if that's something you want to consider, then you've got to build for that, because they need different types of spaces and different types of benching. So thank you everyone. I hope I haven't gone on for too long. I just want more beautifully designed thermal bathing experiences for people, particularly in the UK where we don't have that many of them, particularly accessible ones, to invoke connection and joy. And I'm very interested in boundaries around materials and, you know, what can you make, what can be a sauna, what can be a spa, how can we make more without having to spend £1 million. Thanks, guys.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Katie. I can see that's all from your heart. We can build sauna accessible and affordable to everyone, to most people who can enjoy that. So yeah, next let's introduce Max Newport, the Director of Design at Finmark, the leading purveyors of bespoke authentic saunas, materials and equipment in the UK. He has an observation in the new trend in sauna design after post-pandemic to improve leisure time at home from an holistic approach. Let's welcome Max.
Hello, good evening. It's so lovely to see all of you. Thanks for having me, and hopefully what I've prepared slots nicely between what we've discussed so far with my brilliant co-speakers here. It's a pleasure as always listening to Katie and Lassi. Yeah, fingers crossed, my sort of unique point of view adds more to this picture that we're painting this evening. It's, where are we? Share screen. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, I did this at the start. I managed to share. There we go. My problem is I've got too many windows open. Anyone who knows me personally knows that that's not uncommon. Right. Everyone see that okay?
Looks good.
Great.
So beyond the hot room, the sauna design solution with a holistic approach to the experience. I'm going to try and move quickly through this because I've got a number of pictures and examples where I might ramble, as I have a habit of doing. What do I mean by this? I'm not going to cover any sort of fundamentals here. As you know, I feel quite strongly that that's best really coming from the fonts of knowledge like Lassi, and in fact, by the advice of Lassi A Liikkanen. I mean, it's probably an honourable mention. I'm not sure if he's watching this evening, but Kimmo, a dear friend of Finnmark, and obviously Mika and various people in these circles. I've made a lot of time for listening and understanding the fundamental principles, as well as spending time out in Finland. What I really come to bring to you this evening is a kind of an insider's perspective of where maybe the UK gets it wrong from time to time, and what we can do to help try and improve the experience that everyone adopts in the UK. So UK clients that we deal with often nominate just a corner of their home that they might have had a space lying around for some time, and they think, oh, what could I do with that space? It could be a sauna, or I want a sauna, where am I going to put it? And it might be, you know, quite a low priority space in the house, so they tuck it away in a corner. There's obviously consequences for doing that, and ultimately they can result in a compromise. So a wholesome sauna experience, I mean, this has been covered quite eloquently now by Lassi and Katie. I'll just buzz through these. Obviously, there's the core functionality, which is bathing, and as Katie touched on, I challenge anyone to feel cleaner than a sauna session, especially with Vista. It's phenomenal for cleanliness and you know, just feeling fresh as a daisy. The health benefits, hopefully everyone watching this is aware of all the recent publications and research coming from Finland with the research of like Jari Laukkanen. Social interaction, this is something that before embarking on this journey, I hadn't appreciated played such a significant role, but having that detaching from technology and the daily churn and spending time with friends or family in a social context. And sauna is such a great way to disconnect from all that. So that's playing a really pivotal role in why people are choosing it. Cooling off and relaxing. I think people often overlook the cooling off part, and we'll get onto that with some of the examples later, but particularly when people choose a space in the middle of a house, maybe, you know, a second story, there's nowhere really suitable, particularly local to the sauna, where they can cool off. And as many people watching or listening will know, that oftentimes, if it's an outdoor sauna, going into cold water is such a invigorating, refreshing experience that people that miss that are kind of missing out on, really, I would say, at least half of the entire experience. And finally, the food and drink. I always love to eat afterwards. Salty foods, refreshing beverages. And what we've seen in post-COVID UK, that people are looking for ways to increase their leisure time at home because they can't get away, maximize their physical well-being. So everyone's becoming very health conscious. We saw it in lockdown, everyone's going running, cycling, spending time outdoors, and just generally improving their physical well-being so that they have a better immune system. And also mental well-being. I know that there's one of the themes with the London Festival of Architecture is sort of care, and maybe I'm warping this a bit towards self-care, but in terms of, I know it's been a hard time through lockdown with mental well-being, but again, particularly with the hot and the cold exposure, there seems to be really good evidence to suggest that it's such a strong tool for assisting with mental well-being. So the inspiration behind what I'm going to say is the holistic approach, and I've boiled it down to kind of 3 areas, beyond the hot room, that is. Ways to cool down, again, they've been touched on already. It's something that can be, sauna is kind of like a superpower if you get yourself really, really hot, that you can be outside in nature and not really care about what the weather is doing, and it just opens that enjoyment of nature to all times of year. So I think it's such a powerful thing there, and obviously the health benefits of the cooling off I've touched on, just with the kind of fluctuations in blood pressure and all that's doing for your cardiovascular system. The relaxation element of it, being able to chill out, recline, relax, feel the buzz. I'm sure everyone who's done the cooling off, followed by a kind of a chance to lie down or recline, may have encountered the sauna spins, sauna drunkenness, sauna euphoria. All of the above is that kind of elation and magic feeling you get, which I'm sure, again, if people weren't privy or didn't understand that this could be part of it, that they're just maybe ignorant of how much they're missing out on, as it's such a fun experience. And finally, the kind of the drink, the food, and again, social aspect. And you may have noticed that all 3 pictures on these last slides are from the Finnish Sauna Society in Helsinki, or Espoo, just outside. And this was really what, I guess, kindled or cemented my love of all the kind of total holistic experience of sauna. So this is actually Jake, my brother, and my first project with Phil, our dad, as well. You can see me and my dad in the picture there. This is the Newport family sauna, which really marks the start of Finnmark. The wood-burning sauna. We've got a cold plunge, little paved area to sit and out in the weather under the birch trees and just soak up that kind of natural vibe afterwards. So for me, and you'll see in the way I've structured this, the most the best, most true sauna experience is one that is connected to nature, outdoors, and the more constraints you put between you and that, the more you have to kind of work a bit more tenuously to ensure that you can still deliver what all of those previous aspects benefit you. So in summary, the context and setting of the sauna is as important as the sauna itself. So we must consider quite fundamental kind of things around the sauna when specifying a sauna, as you know, its layout. Is there access to a shower or a cold plunge? Is there a relaxation area? Is there a facility to kind of serve, make drinks, or place to eat and chill afterwards. So moving on, working sort of from the outside in as we kind of tighten the net on the constraints. Starting with garden buildings, there's a huge trend in the UK at the minute with, particularly we see with our clients, because sauna is still predominantly adopted by more cosmopolitan people who are aware of the kind of culture around it, that if they're city-based, then space is at a premium. If they have the luxury of a garden, then they may be able to expand, where they can't have extensions directly on their house, they may be able to expand their living space with the addition of a garden building. So it's a great way to add space to the house. And as I've touched on before, the sauna promotes the use of the outdoor space all year round. So we can see here, this is a lovely little case study of one that we built some time back now. But this was a very small bespoke outdoor sauna at the bottom of the garden in this kind of outdoor living area in Hackney. And as you can see, there's, I'm not sure if you can see, there is a shower between the sauna, which is the black clad facade with the window in it, and a shower, so a washing area and a place to cool off, and then a lounging area in the end there. There's also this lovely picnic bench, so there's a place to eat, and unfortunately I don't think there's a barbecue pictured here, but that would have been a lovely addition for some post-sauna makara and any other kind of snacks like that. Another one here, a recent kind of example, is actually representing maybe a kind of halfway house where you've got an existing space like an outbuilding. This was a coal hole next to somewhere around Hampstead Heath. So we had, again, a nice little garden, but there wasn't space for a garden building. They didn't want to give up any garden space. They had this small little space that we managed to transform into the sauna, again, with the consideration of somewhere to cool off outside and wash as part of the bathing process. And this lovely little kind of privacy window, so privacy glass with a window, so they could make most of the view out across the heath. Then another one, again, in terms of outbuildings, this was a former storage space. This is a personal favourite of mine, where even some of the more challenging constraints, like how you divide up a space when there's existing kind of features of the building, particularly in this instance, this was a Victorian potting shed, and I believe it was listed, so you couldn't really go changing the structure or making any alterations to the what I would have been mortified to have made any alterations when there was such lovely patina anyway in this building. So that gives you an idea of outbuildings. Moving internally, I've got sort of 3 areas of an internal domestic installation. I would say, starting with the blank canvas, this would be like a large space without limitations. We've got essentially, we'd probably end up building at least 2 of the walls, and it would be a largely freestanding structure on its own. So you can make quite large saunas in this instance. You can think about the wider area in terms of, is there a space for a cold plunge, cold shower, or relaxation. So here is an example of a sauna we built as part of, I believe it's a holiday let that people can hire out in Cornwall. I know they're very keen to promote it, so if anyone wants to rent this place out, use it, look up Molesworth Manor. But the sauna here was part of this kind of spa room area. So we've got these, they've built these cedar hot tubs, which one of them I was assured was going to be filled with cold water only for cold plunge. But you may also see there was a cold bucket on the wall immediately outside the entrance to the sauna. So the sauna here as well, I'll nip briefly into the hot room, even though I said beyond the hot room. Inside the sauna here, it's important to see the kind of layout with the L-shaped benching is really good for social gatherings. It's useful to bear in mind stuff like bench layout for the social aspect. You can have opposing benches, a big horseshoe-shaped bench, L-shaped bench, anything that gets people kind of facing one another so that they can have more kind of conversation and interaction is really good for that element. And also you'll note here, a lot of our saunas, I mean, it's very vogue to use a lot of glass, but I really strongly believe that when you can't have like a window directly to outside, that you try and mop up as much natural light as possible. And then when the natural light dies down in the evening, you'll see we have a lot of ambient lighting, trying to avoid any direct light, so that it just kind of is more in tune with that primeval, can't remember the word for it now, but the response to blue light and warm light. So again, this was, I mean, this is kind of cheating because this is halfway outside, but this was a space in a house where we had a large space where we could design a sauna and consider like a cold plunge space. And then the immediate area you can see is decked. This was sort of set aside for lounges, the hot tub behind where I took a picture here, and some other garden space for kind of entertaining. Moving on, tightening the net a little further on the constraints, we've got like an ideal space. Something that you'll see in the following pictures is very representative of, or fairly representative of what you find in interior domestic installations in Finland, where there's often a wet room preceding the sauna, so that you have a space to wash yourself prior to going to sauna, somewhere to cool off afterwards. So I should have been hitting the next button, apologies. So here is an installation, again, with a very pro-social layout. Immediately outside the sauna was this changing space with a large rainfall shower head and another sort of washing area there. And again, sauna straight into a wet room area here, and again with another L-shaped bench where people are really motivated by considering the full experience rather than where we're headed next. So tricky spaces. We love a challenge at Finnmark, and I particularly love having quite tricky constraints because it often leads to the most creative solutions. But oftentimes, as I touched on earlier, you may be limited. The most you could include would maybe be a window. Maybe there's a nearby place in an ensuite nearby, or a bathroom, but at the end of the day, the sauna is sort of hemmed away, tucked away in a corner of a house. So we see here what you can do with a limited space, like I think this was another coal hole under the steps of a Victorian sort of townhouse in London, so hence the arch. Now, as Lassi touched on earlier, the importance of sitting high up in the room meant that there was only really space for one upper bench in this sauna here, hence the little sitting block by the window. We managed to incorporate a window, managed to incorporate an upper bench, and I think there was a wet room nearby, but at this point, again, there's a bit limited on the benefits of somewhere to chill out afterwards. Again, the attic space is something that people are more frequently looking to convert and adapt to gain more space in their homes. So if the rest of the house is already developed and they don't want to go knocking something else out in lower floors, then we've had a few now with sloping ceilings, which have their own interesting challenges with regard to safety clearances around the heater, avoiding fire risks. Hence, this one had you can see the metal heat shields there, a completely non-combustible insulation build up behind. We managed to integrate a skylight, so there was a Velux window in this space, put a secondary window over that to protect it. It was sauna safe. And then this one led on to a wet room as well, a small changing room just outside. And finally, this one's probably representative of where the constraints are so tight that I'd almost try to convince someone to think again, but when they're really dead set on having their own sauna in their house, and this is all the space they have. This was a small toilet on upstairs in a house that it's only really big enough for two people to sit side by side, and the view just looks immediately out into the corridor at a white painted wall. So beyond trying to follow law of Lolu, as you can see there, the top of the stones is level with the raised floor. There's little else you can do in improving the experience. So that's why I implore people, if they're involved in specifying, whether you're an architect, interior designer, or just considering your next build, try and put the sauna first in terms of the experience. Don't just hem it away in the corner of a building. And if you can, put it outside with nature, and just as you sort of have more and more constraints, you can dial that back, but always aim for that connection with outside, always aim for the ability to relax somewhere, to socialize, but at its core, most fundamental thing, we can deliver a sauna. Anyone can build a sauna that is a good sauna with good air quality, good materials, good layout, good design. It just falls short on what for me would be probably 50% of the experience. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll get to questions, I believe, after Asger.
Great, thank you, Max. That was a brilliant insight of what we can transfer any space to fit sauna into our home. So there's no excuse when can have a sauna when you want to. But also that lead to very great observations that sauna is connected nature with our inner self. If we can go out there, if we can do it, have the outdoor sauna. And so that leads to our next speaker, Asger Risborg Jakobsen, I hope it's right, from Denmark. So he is a trained Danish architect, designer at the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts School of Architecture. He's also a medical student at the moment. I probably can tell you a bit about that. So he's one of the creators of floating sauna at the Stensand in Sweden in the wood, and that is a forest eco cabin combined with a floating sauna experience. So for Asger, from a very young age, he said he enjoyed being in nature where he could find inner space, inner peace from detaching the urban life. So let's welcome Asger, who will take us a trip into nature and a dip in the lake. Here, off to you.
Thank you very much. What an introduction. I'm the last one here, and I'll try to give you a blast. All right, yeah, as already said, I'm an architect, but I'm also a medical student, and I wanted to just give you a very brief explanation of that. When I was in school and I was sitting and finishing my projects in front of the computer, I, in the end of the day, after some years, started feeling a little bit hazy and not so happy after a long day in front of the computer. And then the only way of somehow getting back into myself and into my body was going outside and jumping into the canal here in Copenhagen. And I guess a lot of you also know this feeling of losing somehow the good feeling. And I think that's connected to saunaing too. And I guess I need to show you some of my projects, and maybe it makes more sense. So here we go. So can you see my screen? Great. So I'm going to show you 3 saunas I made, 2 of them built and 1 actually unbuilt. So the first one is this floating sauna at Stedsans in the Woods. And Stedsans in the Woods is this eco retreat where people from Copenhagen, Stockholm, Gothenburg, all these cities go to have an afternoon and an evening and a night and a morning in the forest. And so it's a couple here from Copenhagen that moved there and started a restaurant. And I went there with my friend Thomas, who's a filmmaker and also a carpenter. And we said to them, hey, don't you want a floating sauna in the lake? Wouldn't that be a good addition to your place? And they said yes. And we had a lot of discussions about how should the geometry and the language of this building be. And we talked about should it somehow try to mimic nature? But sitting out there, we quite quickly became aware that we couldn't make something as beautiful as nature. So we would rather try to just make the contrast somehow. Say, okay, this is mankind in nature. This is the human beings enjoying nature, and also trying to make it somehow an icon for the place, something that people remembered. So we came up with this triangular shape because it somehow came back to somehow the simplest shape of a building, the tent, and also a very strong structure for this building that's a mixture between a house and a boat. So here you see the back facade of it. Here on the inside, it's you can see the benches are made so people sit at the end and they face the same direction towards the glass door. And as you're sitting there on the benches and looking out the glass door, facing the same direction, the winds and the currents of the lake are kind of spinning the building, and you get this view, changing view of the place. So in that way, it's a way of also enabling to experience this specific place differently, or in a new way that you wouldn't have been able to without it. And here you can see in the winter also, at a time where it's quite hostile in many ways, the sauna makes it possible for you to actually go into this cold water and actually have this experience of dipping into the cold that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. And here you can see an aerial photo of it, where you can see the really dark, almost coffee-colored lake that this lake is in Sweden, and it's somehow it seems scary also to go into it, and it's very deep and dark and cold. But on the other hand, when you can come up, sit up on this little terrace and go in and get the heat from the sauna, it just enables you to dare experiencing it. So yeah, that was the first project I wanted to share with you. Then the second project is something more in the middle in between a sauna and an additional room for building, because I think unfortunately we're not, like in Denmark at least, as good as going to the saunas as you are in Finland, for example. So what has happened to a lot of these interior saunas and saunas in Denmark in general is that there was a lot built in the 80s, and now they're just storage for something, because it got out of, somehow people didn't have time to or didn't want to anymore. So this sauna had to be both a guest room for the family, the client, and also a sauna room, which of course makes it a little bit different in many ways. But as you can see, it's in the corner of the garden here, and it was like a very fertile corner somehow. So it was also very important that the building was both built for, of course, for them, for the guests, but also as a part of the garden, as a part of the greenery. So you can see the center of the building is kind of a little box in the middle, and then around it is this big structure that actually has no function except from supporting all the greenery. So they have roses growing up that and trees growing into it. And in that way, it becomes also a building for the garden, as you can see. Here's a little ladder leading up to the terrace on top, which is also a nice place to go and cool when you have been into the sauna. This is the terrace on top here that's connected with a bridge to the building, to one of the barns that's there already. So in that way, it both becomes a place you can go to cool down and the place you can sit for your having your morning tea and stuff like that. And this is the interior of it as a sauna setup, and then you can move half of the benches down and create a bed like this. And the project is 2 years old now, and it's been used as much for guests like this as for saunas. So I think it's also like, if you don't have so much space and you would like to make it what is called have multi-function in it, then it's also a thing you can think about. This is seen from the outside when used as a bedroom here. And then the last design I want to share with you is this this sauna for community here. And it's a sauna I designed for a group of people on Lassi. And Lassi is an island on Denmark that has a lot of, what is it called? Seaweed, as you can see on the beach. And traditionally, they have made their roofs of the houses with seaweed. And maybe you've seen pictures of it, but it looks like the house has a big uncut hair on it, like that it's needed to go to the hairdresser for a long time. And sometimes you have to go out with your hedge cutter and just cut out for the windows to look in. Maybe you've seen it, but this was a thing we needed to incorporate also in this sauna. So it was made for a group of women that went, what is it called, swimming in the ocean. And they came from all around the island, and they had to meet up at this place, go down through a forest and onto the beach and dip, and then they had to run back to their cars. So they really wished for a place to be able to stay there longer. So we designed this space for them so they could sit there and enjoy the ocean and also prolong this whole experience they had. And as you can see here, it's again with somehow the load-bearing structures on the outside of the building, showing something that's not normally so easy to show in architecture, that we usually clad in and protect. But because the sauna is such a simple building, there's a big freedom and a big aesthetic freedom to use. And this is kind of like showing the bones and the structure of the building. Yeah, and as you can see, it's been insulated from the outside with seaweed, just as they've been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years on this island. And it gives the building this kind of hairy qualities also that we don't see so much in building design. So yeah. And here's from behind with one of the men. He was not supposed to be there, but he showed me around that day. And yeah, so this is just a little drawing where you can see the interior of the building. And in this maybe a little bit Disney-like drawing here, you can see what kind of it enables you to do the sauna, and what I think is my most important experience with the saunas is to experience the nature in a way that you otherwise couldn't have done. It's a building that gives you an opportunity to experience the nature in a much somehow fuller way. So that was actually all the things I had to say to you. So now I guess we're just going to talk a little bit, but thank you for listening.
Beautiful, thank you so much. It feels like almost like meditation, just by looking through all these utopian projects and going back to see the beautiful sceneries that all these saunas sort of located. I understand the last one's actually still on the design stage, so it's almost like, does anyone have want to help to find a home as well? So thank you so much for still staying with us. It's been over an hour now since we have all of you. We still have like 50 people, so really grateful for everyone for being here across the whole world. So for next, I pass on to any panel discussions. We'll start answer some questions on the side. So thank you for dropping that down. So yeah, I'll pass on to Mika. Do you want to now organize this part of the question Q&A?
Yes, thank you so much to our speakers. How inspiring is all that? And there's a great variety of perspectives and even more passion for sauna and the essence of the experience. So we have nominally about 15 minutes for questions. It's going to be tough because yes, so please do fire away your questions in the chat. I don't know how far we're going to get with them, like within 15 minutes, but if people are, especially speakers, are happy to hang around a bit longer, maybe we can have some extra time. But in interest of getting the perspective for all speakers, like there's a nice question in the middle of the chat. So let's start from the middle of the feed and then go back to the beginning, just in the interest of getting the comment from everyone. This is from Christopher Rice. Christopher, many people might know Christopher, but he runs a very, very amazing Facebook group called Wood Burning Sauna. So I encourage everyone to join that one if you want to continue the conversation. Christopher's question is, how would you prioritize design elements consideration? Start with the cold plunge or location or hot room first? And I'm sure that like each one of the speakers has some insight in that. So who would like to volunteer to take that one first? Max, go ahead.
Yeah, that ties in nicely with, I guess, what I was discussing. I personally, I think that the sauna itself, the hot room, is why we're all here. My argument was merely that there's just a lot that people overlook frequently when considering their own build. So yeah, in terms of prioritize, definitely get the hot room right. Focus on making the sauna right, and everything else is a bonus, and it's about what you can accommodate. I personally, it's like being asked to choose between like your kids or something. I don't know if I was to forced to choose between like the social aspect or the cold plunge, which I would choose, because they're both so fundamental to me. Maybe someone else can add their point of view there.
Yes, let's get another comment.
I would
Katie,
say, something that affects the way we put saunas together is it's about the geography of the place you're building in. So, you know, sometimes you just have to kind of start there and work backwards. For example, if you've got a source of fresh water, maybe then, you know, your location of that's located, and so therefore you've got to kind of work for everything else from there. And also like the journey that the person's going to be taking is like the first thing I think of. So, you know, maybe in, you know, as you're designing, you put everything in your mind where it's going to go, and you think, oh, actually, how would that work if I'm moving from one place to another? So it does all kind of happen in tandem, I think, when you're designing.
good. Right. Yeah, maybe if Asger is still catching his breath. So Lassi, do you have an angle on this?
Yeah, maybe I could kind of briefly say that I think Max showed us a quite variety of very awesome designs, which all show the signs of kind of adapting to the environment. And I think that's kind of it actually kind of shows more like a general trait of creativity. That the more constraints you impose on any task, such as design, the more you have to then kind of flex your brain in order to come around those constraints. And I don't think all of the list of the things that was on Christopher's question, I think you usually don't have that many degrees of freedom, in a sense that most of real life projects are rather constrained in terms of where the person wants to kind of spend the time with their sauna. Of course, in some places you might have the kind of opportunity to be very flexible about many things, but that's usually not the case. So it's very unlikely that this question would arise in the real world. But of course, much like Max said, I'll definitely start from the inside and then work towards the outside.
Thank you, Lassi. Asger?
Yes.
You have to add some,
Yeah. I also think it's a difficult question. I think it has so much to do with the space you have, and of course also a lot with who you are, I think. And like if you are actually, if the gold plunge is for you very important, then of course you should start there. So I don't think I have so much to say to this other than it's of course very individual, and it's about the place and about the people.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, let's start from the beginning of the chat feed. So there's some highly focused and question on air quality. I'm assuming Lassi's got 15-second answer to this, but let me read it. How can we measure the air quality in a sauna? Is there a tool for measurement? How do you quantify it?
1 second answer is no. 30-second answer is I hope there should be, but we don't really know what we should be measuring. I think if someone does a like mechanical ventilation system, which is triggered on a level of carbon dioxide, you get pretty far, but that's my best guess and no one really knows much better. So unfortunately, that's the situation.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add to that? If not, we can move on. Oh yes, this is interesting, about the thickness of the walls. Does the thickness of the wood walls affect the quality of sauna heat?
I guess I should probably also comment on that one. I think that's actually a good question. I think I might be wrong, but I might have had even some kind of discussion about this on the wood burning sauna Facebook group some time ago. But I think interesting part is that it seems that a lot of the good properties that you can get why we use wood instead of, in addition to the fact that it looks nice, like in Mac's photos, is the fact that it has these kind of nice hygroscopic properties, which kind of make it interact with lolu and heat in a very nice way. And it appears that you get almost all of these qualities already in the first 15 millimeters, which is approximately a little bit more than half an inch. And so the moisture doesn't kind of go much further than that in a kind of reasonable amount of time. But I think we don't really understand the whole thing. But I think from what we know, it seems that kind of relatively thick paneling will be almost as good as a massive log wall.
Maybe I can also add a little bit to that. And I think it also depends on, of course, what do we want the wall to do, and if it's an outdoors wall, then we of course get a little more of insulation when we go up in thickness. But except from that, I don't think it makes that big of a difference.
If I could add one final thing, I think it can also, on the actual processing of the timber, have quite an effect. So thickness may be tied to what portion of the tree you're using. So whether it's half sawn, quarter sawn, whether it's a complete log. And whatever you do in a sauna, unless it's just cladding, if the wood is serving a purpose as an interior finish and structure and exterior, the temperature differential across the timber can have a severe effect on its dimensional stability. And just the temperature ranges as you go from extremes of, if it's outdoors and it's maybe not centrally heated, or it will over time reach ambient temperature, which in the winter in a lot of places in Finland, and maybe with our friends over the pond up in the northern reaches of America, real cold, and then people bathing in almost 100 degrees, you're going to get such crazy temperature fluctuations that the thickness and the way it's sawn may result in durability issues, so splitting, cupping, warping, that kind of thing. So it's a careful consideration, but from kind of a production point of view, in that regard.
Thank you. Katie, you can either comment on that, or there's a next question that sounds like it's almost like written for you. What is the best tool to move the air around the room if you don't have the benefit of height in a sauna space? You can answer that question directly, but then we can also carry on. Is a height a limitation in general? Yeah, height. There's a big problem actually when we're looking at sort of developing rituals for the UK market. So, we've got the Alfgus ritual, but really it requires a pretty large sauna, and we just don't have many of them here. So, I've been thinking about that one actually, and someone already replied that a whisk, of course, is a really beautiful way to move the steam around, if you've got one. A fan, you can use things. So the Russians often use they have sort of various sauna tool or banya tools. So you can use fans, or we created something. It was like a ring that I found, and I sort of sewed a sheet of material on it, or wafted, using that to waft around. So you can be quite creative really about what you can use to move the steam around in a sauna. And even in small saunas, you can usually do a little helicopter like that. So are there any other comments on how to overcome the height challenges in a sauna?
Yeah, I've actually one that Lassi put me onto in the past. We recently had an inquiry from someone who's wheelchair bound, wants a sauna in their home, and beyond potentially complex, like benches that raise up in the room, really have to be at a low level for access. Now, the thing that we've been considering, and I'd like to test off the back of, as I say, something that Lassi advised, was potentially redirecting the lolu and the heat from the top of the room to an outlet in the lower part of the room, so that people can enjoy the lolu and the heat from lower down. So whether that's mechanically ventilated or some other kind of fancy passive setup. But I myself, for one, have been intending to speak to Lassi for some time about this anyway.
Yeah, I think I actually mentioned this in the private chat, that there's a kind of technology called Saunum, S-A-U-N-U-M. They've developed a device which basically does this kind of circulation, which I think it's probably like the ideal, one of the ideal applications is particularly for the people who are somewhat motorically challenged and have difficulties in climbing the stairs to but it requires electricity, so it's not applicable to all circumstances. But I think I see that there would be kind of it's very ideal, certain, like particularly for people who are, for instance, permanent in a wheelchair.
I think the other thing as well, actually, Mika, you often point this out, is that I talk a lot about the sauna rituals and there's someone there actually moving the steam around the room, but the Finnish sauna is actually the lolu has its own journey, so it's not necessarily manipulated. So you know, the design and the ventilation is so that the lolu creates its own steam path through the sauna and for everyone.
Yeah,
that's right. Thanks for reminding me, Katie. Yeah, so that seems to be one distinction in the Finnish sauna culture, that Finns seem to be reluctant to touch the steam. The steam has its own, like you say, journey and way around the room, and yeah, in a sense, you Finns like to respect that movement and not necessarily touch it. There was some hands raised. So Kimmo, did you have comment on that height question, or was it already answered? And then we can take Aaron's question, I think.
Yeah, Lassi told about the sauna, so
okay,
I have nothing more to say at the moment about it.
It's fine. Yeah, good. That was covered. So there's some innovation coming to overcome the height challenges, especially good for accessibility. Aaron, you've had your hand up for a while. Would you like to fire a question to the panel? If yes, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you. It's I'm really enjoying this, by the way. Thank you, everybody. So I have a question related to, I guess I would say, public sauna design, specifically thinking about, you know, the spectrum of frequent, regular use and the occasional treat. I'm in the US here, I'm in Oregon, and, you know, there's certainly a sauna revival happening here, but a lot of the public saunas are like spa-like and very luxurious, which is great, but it kind of frames it for people, I think, in this way where you go maybe once a month or something. And I think some of that too is when the money is spent to make everything so nice, I think then the costs for people, right, are higher, so it's not as accessible. So I think my question is, like, thinking broadly about design, does anybody have any like ideas for ways that saunas have been designed that kind of incentivize this more regular, almost like utilitarian, in the best sense of the word, use?
Yeah, I think I have a good, some good, what is it called, examples of that. There's of course many different ways of doing it, but one way that I have seen have made a big impact for a lot of people here in Copenhagen is a little, just a little barrel sauna. You know, these saunas that are quite affordable, and it's then placed in a really nice restaurant in the city, just by the water. And then people, when you go to the restaurant, that's the more like fancy solution. You go to the restaurant, you can go there. But then for everyone else, you can also pay, I think around in pounds, £4 or something like that. And then you can go and enjoy the sauna. And it's something that's been used all the time. So take something very affordable and add the atmosphere somehow by incorporating into another place that already has a life and something to give also, and then you have a very accessible experience for communal sauna. That was one nice thing. And then there's also, I guess, as we've seen in the other projects, and maybe it would, I don't know if Katie has something to say, because it seems like that's what she's been doing also.
Well, something that's happened now we've had our pop-up sauna on the beach is that similar projects are sort of replicating. Tends to be a lot of it's around the coast in the UK. So there's been quite a few of these pop up, often in horse boxes, but there's also a barrel sauna that's been put onto a trailer. So I think, yeah, it's just about making something and building something that doesn't cost the earth to begin with, because then there's the freedom of not needing to, recoup all the money. And also what's been quite nice to see with our spa on the beach is that as over time we've managed, if you build something cheaply to start with, over time, if you're talking about public sauna as a business, you're making money, you can then reinvest when you've got the money, rather than spending it all out up front to upgrade things or replace things. So I quite like this idea of sort of modular things that being a bit sort of separate from, rather than potentially being in a building. If you've got land, you can build things separate from each other and you can add to them or move them. So we've had an example that we've been able to reconfigure our entire setup in the last year, because we had all the saunas together. Now we've separated them all out and there's 3 separate sauna zones and people can have private areas. That was for Corona, but we were able to do that because of the sort of temporary, movable nature of everything we've got on site.
I think what I wanted to add to that is that the key thing with a lot of these grassroots things is that they're so easily identifiable straight away as being really authentically driven. In Katie's case, exactly. There's so much heart and soul that go into those places, and I feel that beach box is kind of akin to, I don't know if anyone's aware of Sompa sauna near Helsinki. That kind of, it's not like the community-led thing, but yeah, it just feels so. When you go there, you know that it's from built by people that care, and it's not. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that when you're going through a renaissance, not everyone is necessarily at that point of entry. In Finland, it's a commodity in that everyone uses sauna because it's so ingrained in their culture. They frequently go that public saunas exist everywhere and are readily available at a reasonable price. In the UK and probably in the States, anywhere looking to build one, probably going to, as Katie says, have quite high build costs, and therefore they tend to be part of kind of a more elite point of entry. Is that fair to say? But yeah, I definitely would say that there is the risk if you want to appeal at the as a kind of more wholesome commodity point of entry, that as Katie's done, that very modular fashion helps you grow organically, and that again comes back to something that's far more authentic than like a superficial big mega sauna in a hotel somewhere. Not to say that there's anything against that either. It's just they represent very different facets of the same stone.
I do think eventually it'd be nice to have like a sort of intermediary though, because we've got these really pop-up sort of temporary things, and the luxury. It needs to be somewhere like, you know, like bathhouses we used to have in the UK, which are, you know, someone needs to invest in the long term.
Exactly. Yes. I think it needs to be like a public commodity.
Mm.
That's where we're aiming for, right? That's the grassroots sauna movement in the UK, and probably the same in other countries around the world, is the educating people to the benefits of regular bathing in this fashion, such that the demand there develops the requirement and the need for those intermediate things like you would find in Finland.
And we found as well that, sorry Lassi, I just interrupted you, that when we had things like memberships, that was really fantastic. Like that's what really made it fully accessible, when we had people on these rolling memberships and they could drop in whenever they wanted. But last year has put paid to all that.
Yeah, I was about to add that I think that what the particularly Katie's example showed, that you can basically build or get the core experience to a very good or even great level with relatively small investments. But then again, I mean, there are a lot of then very kind of high level like sauna service, what is more like a resort type of experiences, where people then are spending quite a lot of effort to build this kind of very holistic things, and a lot of other spaces around the sauna. But I think you could basically do much more like bare bones solution with much less investment. But I guess it kind of also comes down to the fact that whether you're trying to kind of do a business out of it, or whether you're just trying to enable bigger parts of people to get to sauna, because there you have, like we've seen in like past like 150 years across the world, different type of solutions of trying to provide this kind of communal baths on very affordable rates. And I think I'm kind of lucky to be located in Finland, where that has kind of succeeded. And now, at least outside the COVID times, we've had plenty of very affordable solutions for people to get to sauna. But of course, most of the world doesn't have this kind of infrastructure that we have.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just add a quick things when we talk about this community saunas, and you know, things aren't, that question is brilliant. Just try to, you know, how to kind of cater all the different spectrums of sauna users and the communities. So yeah, talking of which, like Max mentioned the Sampa sauna, that was actually in my mind as well. It's kind of, there's an amazing, beautiful sauna built by the communities and for the communities in Helsinki. So they literally, people come together, they maybe someone donate a stove, and they just hands-on and kind of experiment new construction as well. When I was there last time, it was probably like the 7th versions of that community sauna, because they get demolished or get damaged over the years, and people just rebuild it again. So it was a beautiful community spirit in there. And they were talking about, particularly they use metal tube instead of normal kind of timber frames for the sauna benches. So it's quite a fun experience, actually. They make it more experimental. So yeah, on that note, also I want to say, like Katie talk about beach box, and that is a beautiful circular economy that we can see there, kind of investing back to the build itself and for the communities. And that's why amazing how you expand from one sauna into like almost like a sauna village. I guess if it's not because that pool, you know, the 50-meter Olympic pool going to be built exactly on your side, I can see you are going to expand it a little bit, bigger and bigger there. That will be like a sauna village by the sea. So, but it's great, and you're moving on to the forest as well. So it's always a finding place and authentic place for people. And from that note, just one small thing, one big thing that I actually got to add, it's one of the projects, so we are British Sauna Society doing for the communities. We are doing this Hackney Wick sauna bath. Maybe a few of us already seen. We try to, it's one of the example experiment we try to do in London for the community. So watch this space. We will put it on. Hopefully we get funded and get it built for people. That's it. More questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's time to start wrapping up. We're already over time, and it's getting late in some time zones and so on. But there's a question from Mina, which I'd like to get the quick round of comments from the panel, because it brings us back to design and architecture and the wider context of the festival and so on. And the question is, in a wider context, how can a breed of architects and designers prepare themselves for the increasing demand in public well-being spaces? And yes, so how can people upskill? What should they pay attention to if they want to get on their sauna journey, sauna placemaking, and creating well-being spaces?
Yes, as a non-architect, I will feel free to kind of prove my ignorance. I mean, I've had a few opportunities to teach other university architecture students about the sauna design. And I mean, the funny situation even in Finland is that most of the architecture or like structural engineering students don't really have any kind of particular training on these matters. So I would guess that probably applies all over the world. So that was one of the reasons I decided to make my book available also in English, in order to be able to reach like professional and also kind of amateur designers and constructors who are really interested to understand, for instance, how do you create the sauna that actually works. I mean, I have no kind of there are a lot of great architects who have been able to create good sauna buildings. But I think it's also kind of a matter of you need to also some more understanding of each particular type of space and what are its unique characteristics. And I don't know if that information is generally not that widely available. It's more like a practice in each and every case. For instance, if you're looking at steam rooms or infrared cabins, I think each and every one has some sort of like own magic to it, which is not necessarily widely available. At least that applies to Finnish sauna. Yeah, to say.
I wonder if there's an opportunity for collaboration between, the sauna professionals and the architects, the bath masters, the people who use the sauna, to kind of create experiences together. Because spa design is really like its own thing, right? But is there an architecture course that focuses on that? I don't know.
No,
I've never done any studying like that. Go on, Asger.
Yeah, no, I not as far as I know, but I think the designers and architects, they of course should go out there and do saunas and do all these things and find out and experience it themselves and find out what is it that they like, and also experience it with others and find out what is it we like to share. I think that's the best start of it. And then I'm sure there'll just be a lot of projects in the future coming up. So I think it's very important for the professionals to immerse themselves into it too.
Yeah, I totally agree. So Max.
No, that's okay. I was going to say that totally. just adding to what Katie said, there isn't a, like, I don't think there is a course or a qualification. I know there's consultancies that we sometimes have to work to a specification or a brief that is decided by a consultancy who clearly know nothing about sauna. And I think there's actually something I wanted to add, was that we have to be very, I don't want to be like a gatekeeper, but we have to be very careful in educating and spreading the correct message, at risk of just cultural appropriation, is what it feels like sometimes with people who maybe only view sauna as a hot box and nothing more. So I think we all have a duty as the professionals, as the bath masters, as people who devote themselves to the cause, to spread the word via, whether it's like Lassi writing his book, or we take time to do continuous professional development sessions with architects. And then there's great people on the front line, like Katie, who are introducing people to the experience that they should come to expect, rather than maybe what we've had and what is available prior to the Renaissance.
Yes, great. Yeah, I was just going to add something. That's why we are lucky to be here, to be, using the London Festival of Architecture as a platform. It's the reason, beginning of this year, I thought we have the need to connect the bath masters and the specialists to have a wider platform to connect with other architects and professionals on this side. Because I think, I would say, like, when as architect myself, before entering the sauna world, I think we will see this is a specialist area. So say we build or design buildings or urban plannings, and they have different sectors. So you could call this as part of, like, how to say, hospitality, leisure, well-being sectors, and that's in comparison with, like, educations and residentials. But however, if you look at sauna, they actually can put in all these sectors. Let's go back and see how it's like in Finland. Most of the sauna, it's could be built by anyone, could be built by architects, because they were born with it. So say, like, offices and university, they have sauna in their own building. People can have a sauna on Friday, just like we go to pub, like have a drinks, and they will have gathering together in a sauna.
Wendy,
So,
I have to interrupt you and say that unfortunately, the fact that we've got so many saunas doesn't mean that they're all equally good, or that people would have kind of innately understood all principles of good sauna design just by visiting saunas very frequently. That just doesn't happen. But let's not go deeper into that here.
I hope I didn't got the idea thing just by visiting you. You know what sauna is about. What I meant is how accessible, sort of, say, in the UK, there's not at the moment, say, like a special courses, as far as I know, maybe they do, to do this sauna design. So I believe there will be a gap. So to do that, so for example, like the rooftop sauna, the first one in South Bank Center, that was part of the Nordic Meta. They treat it as experience and as arts collaborations. So, but they, it was built by Aalto University students. So they actually they brought it in the professions, academic students who come in, but like you say, they might not know much about exactly the sauna, so they still need a specialist to make it work. So I think it's good to know there's a gap, and then we need to find a way to bring it closer. So that's why your book is amazingly useful for many of us who want to build saunas.
Thanks, I hope so too.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for coming through. The most popular question has been, has this been recorded? Will this be available later? The answer is yes, we've been recording, and great that everyone's been behaving. So technology permitting, we can probably share on YouTube or Facebook at a later date. So I think that concludes our program today.
One more question from Louis, so you can hear. Sorry, just a quick question. I saw Louis just have a question. Maybe we could. It's basically talking about the regulations with the UK building standards. So I think it is a long kind of ongoing things we want to campaign about. So yeah, so that's one of our missions as a British Sauna Society. It's to how can we integrate this and learn from other countries that have established standard, and how can that be integrated with the UK building regulations. So yeah, that's a great question, but you know, it just that that we are working on that.
I have to say that from Finnish perspective, that we actually have very few particular regulations in Finland when it comes to saunas. There are actually very few occasions where sauna has like special properties. So it's mostly, but we have a lot of recommendations. Even not maybe not nearly enough, but I think it's still the situation isn't necessarily that much better here.
One thing I saw someone was asking Katie's forest sauna. Do you want to tell people where it is? Or
oh, sure. I'll put it in the campsite. You at the moment you have to book a camping spot to come and use it. In the south of England. Put it in the chat there.
Fantastic. Yeah, you have links to Lassi's book, and obviously you can find Finnmark Sauna on the internet, and Asger's website, and so on. Yeah, and the new site coming up, the camping site. Yeah. Yes, I promised to wrap this up, did I? How well did that go? All right, so this is not the end of the program. So yes, so next week we have the second event on Tuesday evening called New Architectures of Wellbeing, Saunas to the Rescue, where we have very exciting speaker lineup again. We have Anssi Lassila, the architect behind the Lonna sauna. That was mentioned a few times today already. We have Christy Pearson, who wrote a book on bathing architectures recently. We have also curator, design consultant Jane Withers with us, and Mika, who's well known in the sweat bathing circles as the author of difficult to find book of Sweat and the upcoming TV series Perfect Sweat. Yeah. And yeah, so you can follow the British Sauna Society on social media, and we have a website as well. If you want to join as a member, go to the website and click join button, And like Wendy mentioned, we are also incubating this crowdfunding community sauna in East London and the former Olympic site. So the crowdfunding site is on spacehive.com/Hackney Week Sauna Baths. And I think that's it from my side. So thank you so much for coming and sticking with us. This has been great. Great experience for us. So thank you, speakers. Thank you, audience. Thank you for all the lovely questions. And hope you're good lulu on your forthcoming sauna journey, as always.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wonder why you just still staying with